Producer Kurt here. No new content this week. Our apologies. No real excuse for this other than we're supporting the writer's strike. I think that's what we're going with. Anyway, here's a rerun from May 11th, 2006. Enjoy.
Welcome to a very special post Little Bulldog Roadwind edition of the Bob in the Morning, or whenever you're listening to it, podcast, bobcast, webcast, daily audio, blog, internet, current events, comedy club star Kel CleverCast from the offices and studios of Weblake Software, Little Canada, Minnesota. From here, you're halfway there. Don't even think about riding bicycles on our sidewalks. Our noise ordinances are enforced. At Bob Yates Show with 2 consecutive S's.com. I bring you a new definition of hell. But at least it involves blinding sunshine, which is more than we have right now. Only in Minnesota, and maybe the Dakotas. May 11th, you got a woman sitting on a bus stop at Orchard and White Bear Avenue in White Bear Lake just a few moments ago in woolen hat and mittens. May 11th.
It's snowing in Bemidji today.
Isn't that ridiculous? Here's the definition of hell. Blinding sunshine streaming in the front window of a Starbucks in the Washburn area there on Lyndale Avenue as you're losing to an 8-year-old in Uno and screaming to be heard on the subject of her upcoming nuptials, a self-absorbed South Minneapolitan saleswoman screaming to be heard on this subject over a garbled, warbling, distorted sound system pumping out way too loudly the worst possible Starbucks-endorsed music you can imagine. New definition of hell. As for the pod subscriber who was nice enough to provide us with the Huff DVDs most recently, and who listens to the show, if it can be called that, over the phone. And by the way, speaking of the concept of a show, now that I've seen, courtesy of yesterday's Star Tribune, how the public has received new talk-formatted radio stations and old ones that have lame morning teams. Did you know that Rebecca Coles' husband is the sidekick for your buddy Willie's morning show?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jay Coles. I now release my delegates, as they do at political conventions. I release you, pod subscribers, to petition those stations to listen to reason and do the right thing, and I think you know what I'm referring to. I don't know what their email addresses are. I've never been to their websites, but I trust you will petition them to do the right thing.
I wonder how Willie's ratings are.
I also got a gander at the ex-wife station's ratings.
Oh, no.
Well, these were 12 plus, and so it was, not an indicator, I'm sure. Anyway, to Bob at BobYatesShow.com. Hey, Bob and Kel, what up, my homies? How's my peeps? Okay, you Luddites, my phone Palm Pilot is a Treo, Treo. Has a built-in MP3 player. It also has a hands-free earpiece, so I listen to it like Bob uses a sauna CD player.
Oh.
When a call comes in, I push a button on the cord and answer the phone using the speakerphone feature.
Yep.
When the call disconnects, whatever I'm listening to on the MP3 player resumes from the point where I answer the call.
Nice.
I'm a computer guy by trade, but I too avoided the cell phone and Palm Pilot. I was forced to use them in conjunction with a contract job I started in April of 2003. By 2005, I had incorporated a computer business, needed my devices to do my job. However, I hate the fact that I'm basically tethered to anyone who wants or needs to get a hold of me. In response to your astonishment last week at people's need to have these devices when they were able to live without them 30 years ago, especially kids, I agree that they are overused and abused, but being able to contact your kids these days is a necessity. Kids are being bused long distances to schools that are not in the best areas, like many of the children in New York, and the cell phone assures parents of the safety of the kids. kids weren't safe back in the day before cell phones.
That's the thing I realized more than working at this new job, generations. Gen Xers are worried about their kids. They have to be at their softball games. They have to be everywhere. They have to know exactly what they're doing whenever they're doing it. You can't just send a kid down the street anymore.
Back when because of predators or something?
Predators.
So the cell phone is an anti-predator device.
That's what they say.
What did we do about predators in the days before the cell phone and the paper?
They let them take the kids.
Back when I was a kid, I don't think the predators were... there's no need in me even getting started on it.
No.
Back when I was a kid, I don't think the predators were as prevalent as they are now. There's the word predators in the next sentence.
The Nashville
Predators? And you
Predators?
could send your... you're right. Their mascot is the predator.
You think somebody would have complained about that?
Yeah, really. I mean, if you're going to complain about Indian mascots, you should complain about the predators.
At least change it to
What was it supposed to be, like a dinosaur or something? Like a velociraptor or
a
something?
wildcat or something.
And you could send your kids out into the neighborhood to play, bike, etc., with little worry as to whether or not they would come home. Kids disappear more now, and I do think the cell phones provide a certain amount of security.
They disappear more, like magicians, kids.
And, of course, on the downside, terrorists use them to detonate bombs.
Yeah,
So
all the time.
it's kind of a mixed blessing. I really don't know how I'm able to live without one. And I have children.
You do have children, but you worry a lot, too.
But they have cell phones, and the 8-year-old will soon have one. She used the word activated in a sentence the other day, and that is, in itself, its own definition of hell. Little Bulldog road win yesterday, and this was crunch time for him, lest he be replaced in the rotation by Francisco Liriano.
It's like the little Bulldog was cornered, but he fought his way out of there.
That's exactly right.
He wasn't going to get hit on the nose by a newspaper.
I'm hoping that a late, great baseball player with a book just out about his life will be adopted by America as Seabiscuit was a few years ago. Remember the renewed interest in Seabiscuit, which made the agoraphobic known as Lauren Hillenbrand, in addition to being a interview guest on our show, a household name, at least for a year or two there, while that book was high on the charts for a long time. And the book I come to you about this morning is one called Clemente, the passion and grace of baseball's last hero. I would be overjoyed if Roberto Clemente were the next Seabiscuit. I had underestimated the number of years that he played baseball. I guess I had overestimated the number of years in which he lived. But some amazing fun facts, stats, what have you, page 13 this past Sunday's New York Times book review.
In a short life, right?
He played for 18 seasons. I didn't know he was in that game for that long.
That is amazing.
Used an unusually heavy bat, had chronic back and neck discomfort from a 1954 automobile accident. So all that kept him from being a home run-seeking pull hitter. Instead, he sprayed line drives into the left and right field power alleys. Tim McCarver, the first catcher ever to lead either league in triples, once said hitting a triple is better than sex. Most of us are unable to make that comparison, but if Clemente, who hit 166 triples, agreed with McCarver, he played in 2 home ballparks built for ecstasy.
No, I agree, because I hit a bases-loaded triple last night in my softball game, and it did feel like sex.
Last night you hit a triple.
A triple, yep.
It must have been a gapper.
Oh, it was. We lost anyway because we only had 7 players.
And you can field a team with just 7 players?
They loaned us 2.
They loaned you 2?
I have to admit, one of the guys they loaned us...
Talent on loan from church softball.
The one of the guys they loaned us was quite a chatterbox, and it was nice to have him on the team because our team is dead. I mean, they just don't... There's no chatter, no infield chatter, nothing. And this guy would actually... He would cheer us on, and it was fun. I told him after the game, he's our most valuable player. We'll take him out for a beer. He goes, "Oh, I don't drink beer." I said, "We'll take you out for a Kool-Aid then." But anyway.
The author is David Moranis. You might remember him from a book he wrote about Bill Clinton.
Rick Moranis' brother?
It's called Clemente, the Passion and Grace of Baseball's Last Hero. He was not the first Latino player, but just the first Latino superstar, the National League's first Latino batting champion and MVP. Baseball's come a long way since the Giants manager Alvin Dark in 1964 banned the use of the Spanish language in the clubhouse. In 1989 and 1990, 5 of the 26 major league teams had a starting shortstop from the same town in the Dominican Republic. Last year, 29% of the players on the 30 teams' opening day rosters were born outside the United States, 70% of them from the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, or Puerto Rico. Among the nearly 1,200 players on the 40-man rosters this spring, 10 of the 16 most common surnames were Hernandez, Gonzalez, Perez, Ramirez, Rodriguez, Cabrera, Guzman, Lopez, Peña, and Sanchez.
Oh, did you hear Christian Guzman's gone for the season?
Is he really? What did he do now?
I don't know, injured his back or leg or something. So but he's that was one of the few cuts that we made that was a good one.
The report on young Fred Astaire's screen test said, can't act, slightly bald, can dance a little. When the Pittsburgh Pirates drafted Clemente, the report said he can run and throw, and we think he can hit. In his last at-bat, September 1972, he became the 11th player, 15 others have done it since, to get 3,000 hits. Didn't walk a lot, had the nose-to-toes strike zone, difficult to walk. 18 seasons, all with the Pirates. First black Puerto Rican to play in the American League was Clemente's friend Vic Power, a flashy fielding first baseman. Like Clemente, he was incensed by the 1950s contrast between Puerto Rico's easygoing race relations and America's segregation. But unlike Clemente, Power responded with wit. When a waitress said her restaurant did not serve Negroes, he replied equably, "That's okay, I don't eat Negroes." Clemente, playing in a city with a minuscule Latino population, said he felt like a, I'm quoting now, these are the words of the late Roberto Clemente, not mine, double nigger. 5'11", 185 pounds, about the size of today's smaller middle infielders.
That's my size.
Mm-hmm. Except I think you were 5'8" and 195.
Wow. But you know that to a degree. That's amazing.
A Clemente line drive broke the leg of one of the Hall of Fame pitcher Bob Gibson.
Wow. He was a horse himself.
Who, incidentally, this is right up there with T.R. taking a bullet in the chest during a speech and then finishing the speech. Gibson pitched to 3 more batters with a broken leg before he collapsed in pain.
He was a man's man.
And the author believes that a Clemente line drive hastened the retirement of another, the Dodgers' Don Drysdale. August 1969, after Clemente's shot whistled into the outfield, Drysdale flicked what felt like an insect off his neck but discovered blood on his fingers. Clemente's drive had torn the skin off the top of Drysdale's ear.
Wow. Shaken,
he walked Clemente the next time up and retired from the game 6 days later.
Wow.
The last act of Clemente's life was in character. December 23, 1972, severe earthquake devastated Nicaragua, and of course, we know the rest. He went to help and got on the wrong plane, and his body to this day has not been discovered.
I hate to say this, but has there ever been somebody coming up with a conspiracy theory that they were trying to keep a man like that, from reaching any type of pinnacle?
Well, it says here that Nicaragua had a dictatorship at the time. They were diverting and profiting from the shipment of aid. So he chartered an ancient DC-7. Didn't know it was a ramshackle contraption operated by a shady pilot with an untrained crew.
I hate shady pilots.
Me too. 2005, 33 years after Clemente's death, Ozzie Guillen, the Venezuelan manager of the world champion White Sox, said his home has a shrine to the player he most reveres, Roberto Clemente.
I'd like to have a home with a shrine.
Clemente, the passion and grace of baseball's last hero, the author David Moranis.
I have a shrine to Kyle Loesch.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a shrine to me.
Oh, you wish. You don't have a jersey. What would I put up, a framed picture of your suit coat? The mustard muffler?
Forget all about the mustard muffler. Today's mustard muffler weather, May 11th.
It is. May 11th, you say.
The winter radio ratings are in, and brrr.
Who listens to radio? I listen to XM.
The news was cold for Clear Channel's new FM talker, KTLK, who, if I might digress, whose program director is profiled in this month's Minneapolis St. Paul magazine. I suppose you should buy it. It's probably a collector's item. you might want to get it before this station goes under completely. The station, which dumped its smooth jazz format, drew just 2% of the region's approximately 2.6 million radio listeners ages 12 and older, down from 3.4 share a year ago. The person who, to my mind, invented spin, this is the patient zero of spin. If I had a nickel for every time I saw post-ratings remarks like this from the now Clear Channel Vice President Greg with 2 G's Swedberg, I would not need to do this podcast. He said the numbers were just what he expected. Quoting now, nobody here is really disappointed. It takes a while to change listening habits. It took KFAN 10 years to get ratings. Swedberg added that he expects KTLK's afternoon ratings to rise now that it has added Sean Hannity's show. Right. Now there's a program that's right in tune, right in touch with Minnesotans. Only Rush Limbaugh, whose syndicated weekday show went live on KTLK, held his own.
Well, of course, everybody wanted to hear what he had to say about his scandal.
Held his own OxyContin. And this person from the land of the three-named people who wrote this story for the Strib, who has her own favorites, believe you me, chalks up the increase in the fans' ratings to events such as Kirby Puckett's death and Dante Culpepper's trade to Miami.
We've got some big stories to deal with.
But I don't see anything here about the Limbaugh and OxyContin connection helping him. Twin Cities newcomer Willie Clark and former KSTP newsman Jay Coles drew only a 1.8 share among listeners 25-54. These are not 12-plus numbers.
I had lunch. I had breakfast.
These are 25-54. Who the fuck is Willie Clark?
I had breakfast with Willie Clark, and he said he assured me that he could get those 25-54 listeners.
Well, he did. He got 1.8 of them. 44% drop from the year before. This is almost too much statistical thought given to this most insignificant of subjects. Non-profit Christian contemporary music station KTIS.
Oh, the billboards? Is that
jumped a half share.
It was the
No,
billboards?
that's KTIS.
Yeah.
Not KKMS.
Oh,
or whatever.
I get the Christian.
No, this is Chuck Knapp, KTIS.
The Dapper? The pastor?
But it looks as if all conversationally formatted radio stations suffered. Even the trendy Current took a hit. Oh. How do you change your mind about that station? If you're in love with that kind of thing, how do you change your mind about it? How do you, what else you got to do?
Because they're so in love with themselves over there, too.
That could be also.
Wonder how our old station's doing with their new formats.
WMGT, very good point. Let's see, 12 plus. That would take in everybody. Yeah. You know what? I don't see WMGT here anywhere.
Oh,
and I was
that might be the curse you put on.
I was told that there were 90,000 listeners ready to go for this station. At least that's what I read in the newspaper.
I wasn't even told that.
No, we were basically just told to go, weren't we?
I feel like we left there without raging or anything. I mean, he assured us this would be on for a long time.
With a whimper.
He assured us. He looked us in the eye and he said, we're going to go with this for a long time. We see this really developing. And then he stabbed us in the back. And then he got mad at us.
Hard to believe a radio executive would do that. It could be answer to their problems in the morning is replacing Reed Hagen with Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, no. Another star wants to do a radio show?
Yep. She'll be joining the growing ranks of radio voices this summer when she launches a live syndicated program, Wake Up with Whoopi. This is from our friends at Clear Channel. Oh, and her quotes are very Chauncey Gardner-like from Being There. Listen to this. I'm going to talk to people. People are going to talk to me. I'm going to be singing and dancing in my chair. I'm going to wake people up. I want to have a good time in the morning, and I want everyone who wakes up with me to have a good time, too. It's like a mixture of Fred Rogers and Chauncey Gardner. Those are Whoopi Goldberg's quotes about her upcoming show.
But we all know that's not her voice, and her voice is
that's not her voice. That's a Chauncey Gardner voice, if you've ever seen the movie.
I have, but I'm just saying nobody would want to listen to her voice.
Oh, dear God, no.
All the time.
Oh, my God.
Bob Dylan, I wouldn't want to listen to his voice.
David Lee Roth.
Oh. Frank Vassalero?
I think I would rather be hit by a falling utility pole.
Segway?
Segway alert. Sir, Segway. Senior Segway strikes again. A woman walking along a closed sidewalk on Whiteberry Avenue, critically injured when she was struck on the head by a piece of power pole that workers were cutting off with a chainsaw.
You walked down that street quite a bit.
I thought you were going to say I worked with a power pole in the late 70s, which survives to this day. The woman, said to be in her 50s, was taken to Regents Hospital. I hope she's still alive at this writing or this speaking, because she was critical at the time.
And 50, you could go at any minute at 50.
Walked around a 6-foot-high barricade that blocked the sidewalk. Crews were removing old power lines along Whiteberry Avenue as part of a project to build a center turn lane onto Minnehaha. Yeah, but just ask them to fix, I don't know, Beam Avenue.
No, they filled in all the potholes on Beam Avenue, and I think it's worse.
Since they filled them in?
Yeah, it's terrible.
How can it be worse?
Because they just fill in the potholes, but the street is not level. They have to go through and pave that whole thing, I think, just to level it off. It's terrible, absolutely terrible.
How'd you like to be hit by a flying 2-foot chunk of power pole? It got away from him, said the general manager of the construction company. Said he couldn't understand why someone would walk past the barricade, warning, people that something like that might happen, but he acknowledged the chunk of power pole wasn't supposed to fall to the sidewalk. Peg Shapolsky, how upper Midwestern does it get, who works at the Little Oven Restaurant, Whiteberry in Minnehaha, was outside the restaurant when the piece of power pole crashed to the ground, followed by the woman at 1:20 in the afternoon.
Peg, won't you come back to me?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Donald Fagen. As she crossed Minnehaha Avenue to help, a passing nurse stopped her car and ran to the fallen woman. She looked at me and said, "It's really bad."
Wow. A nurse just driving by and helps out. That's just...
Yeah, isn't that something? Isn't that
it's
good Samaritan-like? That would not have happened in New York City.
Or to you.
Or to me. If you had your choice of being hit by a falling 2-foot chunk of power pole or being hit by a flying baseball bat, which would you choose? Hopefully we'll never be presented with that kind of conundrum, that dilemma, that crossroads.
Usually you don't have a choice in the matter.
Which brings me to the case of Delmon Young, rising player in the Devil Rays system. I don't know whether you've seen footage of this. I saw this a couple of nights ago at Sunsets. Suspended for 50 games, and I don't know why you just don't go ahead and suspend a guy for the rest of the season if you're going to, because the minor league season isn't as long, is it, as the major league season?
Right.
International League, throwing a bat that hit an umpire in the chest. Longest suspension in the league's 123-year history. His brother Dimitri plays for the Detroit Tigers. This is Dimitri Young's brother, Delmon. I guess he was called out on strikes, and as he walked away from the plate, he reconsidered saying something about it. He turned around and threw his bat at the umpire, and it hit the umpire in the chest. I don't recall the umpire going down. He was probably too shocked to go down, but he, I guess in a reflex action, immediately thumbed the player from the game.
I'm talking about these baseball injuries, how Clemente hit line drives that hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Now this guy's throwing a bat. Do you remember when Juan Marichal turned around and
hit John Roseborough?
Yeah. John
hit him
Roseborough,
with the bat.
He was never right after that day.
No, he wasn't. Well, who would be? Hey, speaking of injuries, and not necessarily sports injuries, have you noticed how they're kind of talking and writing around the fact, unless it's just a possibility, that in order to decrease the swelling or the fluid buildup or what have you in the man's head, if I didn't know better, I'd think they performed brain surgery on Keith Richards.
Yeah, and they're covering something up. I don't think he's going to be right.
I think so too.
I don't know if he ever was right, but
if you have any kind of sense of humor as a brain surgeon, and you're presented with that part of Keith Richards' brain that contains the notes to all the songs,
it's got to be quite a.
Wouldn't it be tempting to slice off a little bit for yourself and then just to see what happens at the next concert where Mick goes over to him and whispers to him, "Okay, let's do Satisfaction," and Keith goes, "How does it go?"
But doesn't he always say that? I mean, really. I mean, Keith, we've always thought he was half dead anyway.
Yeah.
Now he's got this major injury. Can't they still prop him up there on stage and
it would
let
have
him
to
play?
be it would have to be an accident that would kill the man, because had he been allowed to go on his merry way, pickled with Rebel Yell and Marlboros, he would have lived forever.
He was climbing a tree looking for coconuts.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to go!
Could have bought his own tree, hired his own people to climb up there.
But that would ruin the fun.
Keith's final way of getting high.
Oh, that's good.
Climbing a coconut
Did you
tree.
come up with that yourself?
Just now. But I don't think we would want to hear any of that on Twin Cities Radio. We want to hear Willie Clark and Jay Coles, don't we?
Willie.
And then the guy from Florida with the one woman in house over at the KTLK, and then the
That other guy?
superstar at the fan, and Reed Hagen at WMGT.
You kind of trailed off there at the end.
In other sports news, if you want to call this sports, the crew chief Richard Labby from the Jarrett squad there, the road race circuit, he's known as Slugger, was suspended for 4 races, fined $25,000 for using an illegal part on Dale Jarrett's car. I guess they must have inspectors at these things. This is Richmond International Raceway.
I cannot understand the popularity of NASCAR. I just
The
can't.
sway bar on Jarrett's car was illegally mounted when the number 88 Ford, now this is number 88, not number 8. We know who number 8 is, don't we? Passed through Saturday night's pre-race inspection. You have to know they're going to catch you, don't you? The car owner, Robert Yates, said the violation was not intentional.
One of the Yates boys.
The penalties included a loss of 25 driver points. Oh, my God. I have no idea what that means. 25 driver points for Jarrett, 25 owner points for Yates. It's weird to say my name.
It
say
is,
my
isn't it?
name,
Mr.
say my
Yates.
name.
Mr. Yates.
Beyonce. So that dropped Dale Jarrett to 12th from 11th in the standings. He's 380 points behind Jimmy Johnson. He'll never catch up.
I've heard people who they
Catch-up.
go to different. They let people win. They say, no, this person can't win. It's so political, you know. You have a 4-member team or something like that. It just makes no sense to me. Why you're racing if you're not wanting to win?
I don't get it.
For points?
From our Sports Where Are They Now department, Casey Martin. Remember Casey Martin, the guy with the withered
Leg problem.
leg deal? And there was a big controversy because golf, had no controversies going. They finally found one in Casey Martin. He wanted to be able to ride a cart up the fairway. There was a big hoo-ha with old-timers like Jack Nicklaus weighing in. Casey Martin has been named coach of the University of Oregon or Oregon University golf team. Still has the circulatory disorder in his right leg. He's now 33. The tour argued in court in his case that walking was an integral part of competition. He won the right to use the vehicle. The case was ultimately affirmed by the Supreme Court, but he wound up to be a
Pretty much sucked.
subpar golfer. We just allowed market forces to intrude there, and then they, it was revealed to us that there's much ado about nothing, as is most often the case. Martina Navratilova played a match in her former homeland for the first time in 20 years, and she said the changes she had seen in her travels around the area in that former communist country and the warm reception she had received had her considering reapplying for Czech citizenship.
Wow.
Well, if that's all it takes, you duplicitous old dyke, then just pull that switcheroo and get the hell out of here.
Is she has she settled down and found the woman of her dreams, or is she still looking? Maybe going to mother homeland is going to.
I'm a little out of the loop in the Martina Navratilova
Well, you knew Billie Jean King.
romance news. I never met Billie Jean King in my life.
No, I know. You knew her story. You knew that she had a wife, didn't you?
Ilana Klosh.
Exactly. See, it rolls out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all the sports news, unless you have some others. Miami kicked the hell out of New Jersey last night. I don't know what happened with Phoenix and the Clippers.
And you were at a sports bar all night.
No, actually, I was at home screening. I did a screening
And then
last
screaming?
night of a pretty bad indie, likably cast with fine actors, one of whom is a favorite of mine, Ms. Paige Turco. Kind of a separated at birth with Carrie Werrer, except Paige Turco's breasts are real. And Jeremy Sisto of 6 Feet Under is in this. Adrienne Shelley, one of the first ladies of indie film, the redhead you may have seen now and again on IFC or Sundance. And a couple of other folks you recognize as well. It's called, when I tell you the title of this movie, you're going to go, how did that get made? And especially with that title, even though it's just straight to video. It's a pretty slickly made indie effort set in New York City, but it's called Dead Dog. And it's about a guy who goes off the deep end when the fiancée lets the dog get away from her. The dog is run over, and the guy goes on a crusade to find the hit-and-run driver who killed his dog.
I think it would have sounded better in Spanish. Perro muerto.
Mm-hmm.
But no.
Amores perros. Speaking of movies,
Oh, nice segue, sir, segue.
apropos of movies, Mission Impossible 3, number 1, $48 million. And there could have been 10 more million on top of that if Tom Cruise hadn't pissed people off.
What I'm hearing is that Philip Seymour Hoffman is quite the villain.
Is he?
And that people are clamoring for more from him.
Wonder if a villain's ever gotten a spin-off or a sequel.
I don't know, but they say he was not in the movie very much, like only had a couple of scenes. What he had was very good.
RV is number 2,
Well, you liked RV from what I understand.
the parts I saw. An American Haunting, what is that, number 3?
An American Haunting.
Stick It is number 4. I guess you know that's from the writer of Bring It On. United 93 is number 5. I was in the browsing that I did at a Blockbuster there on 50th Street in between Willette's Bakery and the DQ Restaurant, where I took the 8-year-old yesterday. I guess I don't know whether it's a movie or a documentary, but I just saw a DVD called Flight 93. So I guess...
Yeah, it's a documentary.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ice Age number 6 with a mere $183 million. Silent Hill, flash in the pan at number 7. Although that was probably pretty low budget. I mean, when your star is Rhoda Mitchell, it's probably pretty low budget, and that's $41 million total. I think they're already making money. Scary Movie 4 at number 8. Aquila and the Bee. They got to be disappointed in that. At only $10 million. Apparently, people, unless it's a documentary like Spellbound, which the critics love, and this Bee season with Richard Gere as the father of a daughter who's in a spelling bee, apparently people do not want to watch spelling bees as entertainment in the movie theater.
Well, there's a Broadway show, too, isn't there, where it's like the spelling bee of Calaveras County or something?
Yep. Hoot is number 10. It's hard to believe that a movie that clean, which is about role model type youngsters trying to save an endangered species of owl, could be so bad and so sparsely attended.
Right.
Opens up at number 10 with $3 million.
Will the 8-year-old be seeing that one?
Not if I can help it. I mean, not with me.
It's got a good message.
It does have a good message, and it's live action as opposed to animated.
Yeah.
This weekend we'll be renting Hoodwinked from the McDonald's Red Box.
Let me know what you think, because I've heard good and bad on that one.
The Sentinel with Michael Douglas, number 11. The Wild is fading. Number 12.
I think it's
4 weeks
time
on the charts.
I think it's about time for Over the Hedge.
Yeah, I do too. The Benchwarmers, almost $56 million. Anybody smell Benchwarmers 2 coming down the highway?
People love John Hader.
Friends with Money. I don't know how you go about making back your investment. I suppose DVDs or other formats when you've only got 9.8 million in 5 weeks. At number 14, Thank You for Smoking. I would think this is a disappointment also. Only 20 million total in 8 weeks. And this was supposed to be the rare, funny, non-Wedding Crashers, non-40-year-old virgin type comedy. A smart, funny comedy. For some reason, people didn't like it, or maybe they haven't accepted Aaron Eckhart as the leading man or something. I don't know, but it's. I was really looking forward to it.
So it was supposed to be a comedy? I always thought it was supposed to be kind of a drama.
I'd say a dark
dramedy?
satire. $20 million. $86 million for Inside Man, number 16. It means Spike Lee will get to make another movie. Take the Lead, Antonio Banderas as a tango coach or something. Number 17, just ahead of lucky number 11. How disappointing is that? With that cast, $21 million in 5 weeks.
And Rex Reed didn't like it.
Maybe it's just too complicated. Yeah, speaking of Rex Reed, where the hell's my Observer? I haven't gotten an Observer in weeks. Nobody hates a movie like Rex Reed, but I can't bring you his latest hatred if they won't send me the magazine.
You have to download it then.
Failure to launch. This is frightening. $87 million. 9 weeks on the charts. And American Dreams is gone and will be gone by this time next week, number 26.9.
There were a lot of stars in that one, too, weren't there?
In American Dreams,
Yeah.
yes.
Andy Moore, Hugh Grant.
They probably thought, a year, 2 years ago, I got to believe this is one of those rare movies that does take 10, 20, 30 years to put together. It was made to capitalize on the popularity of American Idol.
And a stupid
So
president.
how bad can... Yeah. Hey, speaking of presidents, I forget in which context I read this, but you said to me that the most recent president portrayed on the sitcom 24
Yes.
contemplated suicide?
Yes.
And then the president before him, was that Dennis Haysbert?
Yeah, was assassinated.
He was assassinated.
Yeah, well, after
what
he
is
was
it with all the problems with the presidents
But
on this show?
he was a former president, and he was assassinated. Basically, he was given it was the go-ahead to assassinate him given by this current president. So it's all coming back to haunt him now.
How's this for the latest Sallyism? It involved the subject of assassination. She asked me what one is, and I said assassination is usually the killing of a government leader or some outstanding figure in the culture. I gave a couple of examples of non-elected people being killed, as John Lennon or Malcolm X. That those are considered assassinations. And she asked me that if someone shot Hillary Duff, would that be considered an assassination? And I said,
You didn't say it.
I said I didn't think so.
Okay, that was nice of you.
She said, "What about Rosa Parks?" And I said, "No,
She died around
you
her
must have Rosa
old
Parks
age.
mixed up with Martin Luther King, who was not an elected person, but he was, he was what he was, and he was killed. And that's considered an
I think
assassination.
it's nice that
but
all the
Rosa
white
Parks died a natural
the
death.
white supremacists, segregationists, all throughout her years, they let Rosa live.
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice, I think, of them. They had some kindness.
Speaking of black people, yesterday, you remember I showed Kel the picture of the guy in South Africa who had just been informed that he was acquitted of rape and he was involved in this celebratory belly laugh. The latest development in that story from the New York Times yesterday, South Africa, apology for unprotected sex. Newly acquitted of raping the daughter of a family friend, South Africa's former deputy president, this is the guy we saw laughing yesterday, Jacob G. Zuma. Guy's got the last name of a Neil Young album. Apologized for having unprotected sex with the HIV-positive woman last November, saying he, quoting now, should have been more cautious and more responsible, end quote. But he bristled at the widespread criticism of his statement during the trial that he had showered after sex to minimize the chance of contracting HIV.
Brother.
Showers, at least in this man's mind, can prevent HIV after the fact, after unprotected sex with a person who's been infected. Now, I will say this.
A good shower goes a long way.
It does, or a bath. Sitz bath. Many is the time I thought I could
Wash the world
kill
away.
whatever had found its way onto my body by just,
Scrubbing.
lathering up. And while on the tennis tour, I was told by a Polish tennis player after a trip to a Monterrey, Mexico bordello that if I doused my genitals with aquavelva, that would kill whatever
And then-
germs might have accrued.
Then a Home Alone joke, erupted with you slapping your thighs. Wasn't that correct?
Mr. Zuma said he had not stated that showers prevent AIDS, explaining that his behavior was an additional measure to ward off infection, akin to washing one's hands after peeling an onion. I'm not going to have to explain to this grown-up, am I, the vast difference between peeling an onion and peeling off your clothing in order to get busy.
Oh, there you go. You are a wordsmith.
Speaking of politicians, and that's what he was, Deputy President of South Africa, you're now at 31% approval rating for the American President George W. Bush.
Dropped from 32, I think.
32 to 31.
Wow.
Can we get this man into the 20s before Congressional Election Day in November? 13% approved of Mr. Bush's handling of rising gasoline prices. I have to believe this is the 13%. This is the sector that's driving around here and can afford to in enormous tanker truck-sized SUVs and Suburbans and whatnot.
Has he done anything positive? Anything that you could say, boy, that was great?
I don't know what it would be. I really
I don't either. I mean, he's just pretty much done what everybody tells him to do, and that's it. Said what he's told to say, and it's sad.
The percentage of respondents who said going to war in Iraq was the correct decision slipped to a new low of 39%, down from 47%. I mean, even the evangelicals, many of them are abandoning him, to give you some idea of how they treasure their gasoline.
Rats off a ship.
2/3 of voters said he did not share their priorities, up from just over half right before his election in 2004. 2/3 said the country was in worse shape than it was when he became president 6 years ago. This is why you get headlines. I realize Rolling Stone magazine, pretty much the usual suspects, but you'll see more headlines like this. Usually it takes historians decades to figure out if a president was good or bad, or comparing bad presidents with good or bad with bad. You're already seeing headlines, and I dare say you'll see more before the year 2008, declaring this man, hands down, the worst president in the history of the United States. In a way, it's kind of cool to be living in this era. That way you can tell your children and grandchildren, I lived in the era of the worst president of the worst president in history.
Kind of like those people who say, I lived through the Depression. We can say this.
Yeah.
Nice. We got that going for us.
Mm-hmm. Just god-awful.
But as Jim Brown once said, what you going to do?
One other political item. Well, that's right. You can't. I mean, I don't think you can recall or impeach a person based on their incompetence.
Right, we just have to wait it out.
It would have to be something, corruption related. You just have to wait it out.
Wait for better days.
You just have to bite the bullet.
Is Hillary still on the horizon?
I hope not.
Do we have any idea who the Democrats are going to trot out there?
I have no idea.
I'm just scared.
Actually, at 31%, his approval rating was still better than that for either Gore or Kerry, but less than Hillary Clinton.
Do you think sometimes he wishes that he had lost to Al Gore in that election?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I know Dick Cheney doesn't wish it, but
Dick Cheney's approval rating, according to Maureen Dowd's column yesterday, you ready?
Negatives?
20%.
Oh.
20.
Well,
Your vice president of the United States, who, in previous administrations, they go to funerals. They go to state funerals, and they, 20%, which means 80% of the people of the United States can't stand the man who is one heartbeat away from the presidency.
He almost shot a man. I mean, he did shoot a man. He almost killed a man.
Speaking of politicians, I know I've just spoken of them in two different contexts, but this has to do with their own governor, Tim Pawlenty. This could be one of the all-time recent examples of a Republican politician being totally unable to put himself in anyone else's shoes, and this has to do with his comments on the medicinal use of marijuana. I don't know whether the folks who feel they need this in order to distract themselves from their dread diseases would want to be in the frame of mind I was from the hours 6:15 to 10:15 p.m. this past Friday night. But if they need that, I think we should do what we can to make their twilight years, regardless of the age range in which they're encountering them, as comfortable as possible. Governor Pawlenty disagrees. I think it is an unneeded and unwise proposal, he said about a bill to legalize marijuana for limited medical use. No skin off his penis whatsoever. But on some sort of, I don't know, legal or moral grounds, he can't. You know, this is from the same party that weeps for stem cells. But when it's time for the bodies to come back from Iraq, sometimes you can find your loved one stacked over by some golf clubs. This is the party whose the father of the current president didn't know what a barcode was. They have absolutely nothing in common with you. And yet I heard one of your number at Sunsets a couple of nights ago getting in little jibes about non-entities like George Soros and, for that matter, Hillary Clinton and other people who aren't the reason why gasoline is $2.85 a gallon. I know it's important that some people who have voting rights have other people to despise. But look around. Those people are not the source of your problems. Speaking of politicians, I love this about Tom Osborne, the football coach turned congressman.
How's he doing?
You'd think that this man, similar to Nolan Ryan in Texas, Jim Bunning in Pennsylvania, or Michigan,
Steve
whatever
Largent.
it is, Steve Largent, could get done whatever he wanted done, career-wise or legislation-wise. He's Tom Osborne.
Right.
Tom Osborne lost to the incumbent governor in the Republican primary for governor in Nebraska. And I love the way they've worded it here. In Nebraska, with 86% of the precincts reporting Heinemann received 50% of the vote to Osborne's 44%. Osborne was initially considered a strong favorite because, now, here you expect to see in the rest of this sentence some legislation authored by him or some,
Husker Pride.
Osborne was initially considered a strong favorite because of his 3 national championships at the University of Nebraska. Associated Press sometimes has no idea how funny it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, you're not a coffee drinker. Are you a green tea drinker?
No.
Or a tea drinker? You don't drink tea at all either?
I stay away from everything like that. I drink iced tea once in a while on a hot summer's day.
Do you consume anything with caffeine in it? Or are you just on a
Coca-Cola?
natural high? Coke? You do Coke? Okay.
I do Coke a lot.
Because this has to do with a study. It was thought that drinking 5 ounces of green tea a day might reduce the risk of heart disease. I can tell you how you can numb yourself to heart disease is 5 ounces of Sky vodka and orange juice a day.
That's what you do.
I'm preparing for my heart attack.
No, it'll never come.
That is my medicinal marijuana.
I wish and I wish for it.
The
It never
screwdriver.
comes.
And that's what I'll be using to wash down Kel's flesh when I eat him. Headline, German who ate man convicted of murder. He's back. We have some more Armin Muse news for you. The man who admitted killing and eating an acquaintance he met on the internet has been convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison.
But the guy asked for it. He wanted to be eaten, I thought.
That was the defense. And I remember seeing this and thinking, oh, gee, there but for the grace of God go I. If I was going to be hauled in and taken to task for every person I've offered to eat on the internet.
Right. How many times have you used the phrase "eat me"?
Mm-hmm.
Or heard it?
And sometimes, so I won't be misinterpreted, I use the word lick instead of eat. Or nibble. Armin Muse's lawyers had argued the court should convict him on the lesser offense of killing on demand on the grounds he was following his victim's wishes. 44-year-old computer technician once again made a detailed confession. If Kel Gradke has any time after the podcast, and let's say it can only take a minute or two, I'd love to know what the details are of his confession, because I have a feeling condiments are involved. I don't know, tartar sauce, horseradish, something a little more advanced than salt and pepper.
Mayonnaise.
He told the court the grisly details of the March 2001 killing of Baron Jürgen Brandes. I gotta believe that it has something to do
You gotta believe, as Yogi Berra once.
with either condiments or sauces.
Picante?
Geronimo's skull is apparently in the possession of
You?
some ultra-secret skull and bone society at Yale University.
Do you have any bones?
Why
in
would
your-
they need... Bring me the head of...
Do you have any bones in your body part collection?
I do not. I can't imagine what Geronimo's skull would go for on eBay.
Can you run down the list again of what you have? If you can remember. It's a tired
Ella
bit.
Fitzgerald, right leg. Toady Fields, his left leg. I'd like
Dillinger's-
Van Gogh's ear, actually.
Dillinger's penis.
I'd love to have Dillinger's penis. I think what we could probably say is they removed some skull and bones and other materials from a grave at Fort Sill. It may be impossible to prove it's Geronimo's. They believe it's from Geronimo.
Or else it's Ted Williams.
Members of Skull and Bones swear an oath of secrecy about the group and its rituals, which are said to include an initiation rite that includes kissing a skull.
Well, if anybody
What the
would
hell
kiss-
is that about?
You love to kiss. You'd probably kiss it.
Not a
you've kissed it.
skull. Yesterday on a wedding story, I think it was like 10,
God.
10:30, something like that on
How
TLC.
do you watch that crap?
I only tune in the last minute or two of these
Oh, the
shows,
honeymoon?
so I can see what happens when the minister says you may kiss the bride. And yesterday, the bride led with about, I'll say 4 or 5 inches of church tongue. And they
Church tongue.
They got shots. They got shots of little old ladies in the front row going, "What the hell was that? Boy, she's already all hot and bothered." Pretty funny stuff.
The bride wore black.
Wedding story, and then fittingly enough,
Baby
baby
story,
story,
yeah.
although not with the same couples.
Do they ever have honeymoon
And then
story?
at 1:00, runway mom.
You'd pay to watch honeymoon story. Actually, I think you have.
I don't know why no one's taken me up on my suggestion, MTV, VH1, what have you. The riff on This Is Your Life, the Ralph Edwards thing, This Is Your Sex Life.
This is a tired bit.
Well, I just, it's tired only because I have to keep railing about it and railing about why it hasn't been given any credence.
Who would be the host of This Is Your Sex Life?
Ryan Seacrest.
Not Wink Martindale.
No, it would have to be someone young and edgy and
Roger Lodge.
superfluous. Roger Lodge. He'd be perfect. Kel has brought lots of material, lots to the table.
But we're almost out of time.
That I'm trying to look for something that will easily segue. All right, here are two pretty debatable items. One having to do with
Well, yeah, if you want to stay with
a
the
law
head.
enforcement officer charged with indecent exposure.
But then there's that head thing, the Ronald Reagan's head. If you want to go from Geronimo's head to Ronald Reagan's head.
And then there's the Spanish town hosting a big blind date party.
Hey, does PDR number 3 know a lot of Spanish since her trip and all that type of thing?
She's not. I think
Is she
by her own
fluent?
admission, she's not as fluent in Spanish as she is in German.
But could she, if we invite you and her to the baptism party, so to speak, afterwards, if you want to come by, have some beers, that type of thing, could she talk to my in-laws?
Cerveza?
Could she talk to my in-laws? Could she?
I'm
say-
sure she could try. What's the date on that?
The 14th.
14th of.
The 11th or the 11th, the second Sunday of June. He's already thinking.
So you're assuming that by that time the child will be born and be ready for Christmas.
I would think so.
Well, that's awfully nice of you to think of us. Where would that happen?
Backyard. I mean, the church will have the.
So
they'll
not
have
in
the
St.
white
Cloud.
bear-
It would be in your backyard.
Right. The party's in our backyard. Baptism at the church. White Bear Lake,
What church in White Bear Lake?
South Shore. We're actually going to have the baptism. Did I tell you we're going to do the baptism in actually in White Bear Lake?
In a lake?
Yep.
It's very Curb Your Enthusiasm-like.
I think so.
From the baptism scene in which Larry David was
But no Jews allowed.
briefly capsized. Yeah, really.
I told David your little joke yesterday, and he didn't think it was very funny.
What little joke was that?
That you said I should tell him no Jews allowed.
Oh, well, there goes my shot for a job with David Stillman. Didn't think that was very funny.
I don't think you ever had a shot.
No, I think it should be regarded by acclamation in the larger society that I should just be put out to pasture. That I should not be given another shot
Put
at
out to
showing
stud?
one of my many talents. Not one. Let's just not bother him. Let's
Right.
just keep him comfortable till the end, and let's go on with our commitment to mediocrity in
Besides-
this culture, in our companies, in our private lives, in our parenting, in our podcasting or broadcasting consumption habits. Let's just forget about him.
Well, besides checking your email and making love, what are your talents?
Oh God! I would hope you're listening to one,
I know.
which
Jeez.
could
But that's-
consist
but-
could
but-
consist of nothing.
But yeah, talking on the radio, talking is not necessary. Sometimes other jobs don't necessarily look at that as something that's marketable.
Oh, I think anybody could do this.
Yeah. How many words a minute do you type?
80.
Wow, that's not a lie? That's the truth? Really?
Oh, I was actually understating. It's probably closer to 90.
Wow.
But no, don't bother him. Just put him off in a corner and consider him irrelevant.
Yeah.
A footnote to a footnote. He had his day.
At
He had
43.
his chance, and he blew it. No Jews allowed.
You're an honorary
I'm
Jew.
kind of tempted, actually, to respond to the ad I saw in yesterday's White Bear Press for a copy editor proofreader with the White Bear Press. I'm wondering if I could sneak back into that building.
Maybe they've changed ownership.
I think I made, what did I make in the year 2003? $8.50 an hour.
Oh, nice.
I got to believe they're upwards of $10, $11 an hour now.
For you, it went down.
But I'd have to tell the acting managing editor, who I've never met, about the conditions in which we parted several years ago.
Well, you
That
could
it took a
embellish.
Ramsey County district attorney to come in and howl for my scalp, which was then donated to her by the gutless publisher of the White Bear Press.
You weren't shown the door, though, right?
I was shown the door.
Oh, I
yes.
mean, like, not
I was
escorted.
there wasn't a door in the parking lot, but that's where I was.
But they didn't throw you out.
No,
Oh, that's good.
I left the property after being told to leave it.
That's good. That's
I
a
didn't
good-
want
that's-
to press the issue.
That's good.
I
though.
don't like to go where I'm not wanted. And of course, by that standard, perhaps I shouldn't show up here tomorrow. And
they'll
having
like
found
you.
out that I'm not welcome at Bridgeworks in Minnetonka, I can't go there either.
Where can you go?
I don't know.
You can find
I
a
think
bar where
Axl
everybody
Rose.
knows your name.
I think Axl Rose asked it best. Where do we go? Where do we go now?
Axl Rose. Where is he now?
Didn't he sing that question?
Yeah, nobody wants to associate with him anymore. You and
That's
Axl.
what's happened. I've been Axl Rosed
You've been axed.
without having been able to spend the night with Stephanie Seymour. Customers, as Kel alluded to a few moments ago, customers in Northport, Alabama will get more than a burger and fries at the Northport McDonald's, which is where President Reagan chomped down on a Big Mac during a 1984 stop. A bronze bust of the former president, I guess, has been installed there. A halogen light will shine on the head of Ronald Reagan 24 hours a day.
Is there a Bill Clinton joke in here someplace?
I don't see one.
But they didn't have enough busts.
Framed photos showing Reagan biting down on his Big Mac will accompany the plaque. I guess he stopped in mid-October 1984 after a speech on the University of Alabama campus.
That was his only burger.
He
ever,
ordered a
probably.
Big Mac, large fries, and sweet tea, and sat down to eat with locals Charles Patterson and Greg Pearson, which right there presents you with a big difference between Ronald Reagan and this guy in Germany who was just found guilty of murder, who would have sat down to eat locals Charles Patterson and Greg Pearson had they asked him to do it.
You are talented.
A plaque put up by previous owners was often stolen. Well, wouldn't you want that for your dorm room? But when Hannah tore down the old building and renovated, he decided to keep the memory alive. President Reagan ate here. I want to thank Kel Gratke for bringing in this material.
Something.
He's bringing stuff to the table now in the absence of newsmakers doing anything.
But you brought a lot yourself today, so I thought that was a complete show.
Well, we'll see what it sounds like tomorrow on a very special TGIFF pre-Mother's Day edition of this podcast, webcast, Bobcast, daily audio blog, current events, comedy club starring Kel Gratke.
Maybe you can go down the Farmer's Market Guide to Eating.
Well, hopefully by this time tomorrow I'll have some anecdotes. From
some Sallyisms.
Yeah, perhaps some Sallyisms. Although I won't be seeing her today, I will have her for a partial weekend this weekend because of Mother's Day.
Maybe more Tales of the Boudoir with PDR number 3.
No, she is in Rochester to hear an inspirational speaker on the subject of chiropractic.
Well, the only
so
thing
I am.
left is
you say no man is an island. Today I will be an island.
The only thing left are Tales of the Hand.
On the tennis court.
And we don't want to hear
tennis court, in the sauna, in the writing room downstairs, video store, wherever my unemployed life may lead me. But once again, I release my delegates to inveigh of these idiots with hiring ability at local radio stations to do the right thing.
Were you Spike Lee?
To do the right thing, bring jungle fever, and admit he got game. Admit that I got game. Thanks for subscribing and renewing at BobYatesShow.com with 2 consecutive S's. Bonsoir, bonne chance.